Good evening, and welcome to the John F. Scarpa Academic Center at Stockton University, Atlantic City. And welcome to those watching online and listening on WOND Radio. I'm John Frungen, Director of the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy at Stockton, and I'm the moderator for this debate. We are pleased to partner with the Press of Atlantic City to bring you this debate among candidates for Atlantic City Mayor. And so let's meet the candidates. To the audience's left on stage is incumbent Mayor Marty Small, the Democrat. To the right of the stage is Republican Tom Forkin, and seated between them is Jimmy Whitehead, Independent. Here are the ground rules for tonight. All three candidates will give a 60-second opening statement, and they will give a 60-second closing statement. Press of Atlantic City editor Buzz Keogh and Clyde Hughes, editor of FrontrunnerNewJersey.com, will pose questions to the candidates in alternating order, and that was based on a random draw. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer each question, and I'll give 30 seconds as a follow-up if any kind of response is needed. Candidates, if you look over there, you'll see Samantha, who is a press intern and a Stockton student, and she will be our timekeeper, and she'll signal you with a sign when time is running short and when time is running out. And I ask you to please keep within the time as much as you can so that we can fit in as many questions as possible. Finally, I ask the audience to show respect for the candidates and allow them to speak without interruption. Please, no applause, no shouting, and certainly no booing. My center's namesake, the late Ambassador William J. Hughes, was a strong advocate for civic engagement and political discourse. So let's honor that memory and let the candidates speak. And finally, please silence your cell phones. So we'll start with 1 minute openings, 1 minute opening statements. And by luck of the draw, Mr. Forkin, you will lead off, followed by Mr. Small, and then Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Stockton University, and John Frungen, and the Press of Atlantic City, Mr. Keogh. It's an honor to speak here this evening. Again, my name is Tom Forkin. I'm running for mayor of the city of Atlantic City. And it's a true honor to speak here at the William J. Hughes School of Public Policy. Mr. Hughes, Congressman Hughes, Ambassador Hughes, was a personal friend of mine and my family for many years. And what John said holds true. He was a gentleman, he was a scholar, he was a public servant. This election cycle transcends politics. It transcends political parties. Quite simply, we need change in Atlantic City. The state takeover has been a train wreck here in Atlantic City. Our debt has escalated up to $550+ million at the expense of the taxpayers. So I'm sure we're going to hear from the other two gentlemen this evening, but I respectfully submit as a former member of the Whalen administration that I would be the better candidate for the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Small.
Yes, good evening, everyone. And it's a great day here in the city of Atlantic City, and I'm proud to be here at my alma mater, Stockton University. I took the mayor's office over 2 years ago under a cloud of controversy. We had to restore faith and confidence in the great city of Atlantic City's government. We had to rebuild and repair partnerships, and we've done that. As a person that has always been keen on the numbers and looking out for the taxpayers, my administration delivered the good people of Atlantic City a back-to-back tax decrease, despite losing $80 million in the rateable base, increasing services while decreasing spending. Then we had to deal with the change of government. The people of Atlantic City stood strong under my leadership under that effort, and we had to deal with civil unrest. We had a bad few minutes in Atlantic City while the rest of the country rioted for weeks and months. In addition to our response to COVID-19, delivering 2 testing sites, delivering 3,780 senior citizens hot meals twice a week, to keeping the businesses open with our outdoor. Stop.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Whitehead.
Thank you, Stockton University. Thank you, Press of Atlantic City. Thank you, Atlantic City, for this wonderful honor to become your next mayor of Atlantic City. As we know, we need a change in Atlantic City. We need integrity in Atlantic City. We need honesty in Atlantic City. And we need somebody that leads with good ethical principles, family values, etc. I'm the right candidate for that role. I'm a Navy veteran. I worked for the White House for 12 years. I understand how to work in the federal government, and I know how to do things legally, honestly, and ethically. I know how to set a role model for our children, how to be a good leader and not a gangster leader. I know how to bring Atlantic City together from every corner of Atlantic City, so together we can grow Atlantic City, go forward together, and all we can stand up and say, it's a new day in the city of Atlantic City. God bless you. Make sure you vote for column D. Jimmy Whitehead is your guy to take Atlantic City forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll start the questioning. 60 seconds for Mr. Forkin.
The first question is for Mr. Forkin. What can the city do to make the tourist resort more attractive to non-gamblers and to families?
What can the tourist district do?
What can the city do to make the resort more attractive to non-gamblers and to families?
Well, I mean, we have wonderful, beautiful beaches. Atlantic City was founded as a health resort. So, you know, when you look at the beautiful beaches here in Atlantic City, the ocean, you know, people came here, you know, Jonathan Pitney established Atlantic City as a health resort. People would come down, as Pinky used to say, and bathe in the salty brine, and it was healthy. We have beautiful back bays. The Jimmy Johnson fishing tournament this year was an absolute home run for the city. So I think if the city supported special events, ocean events, beach events, I know we have the beach concerts, you know, really the challenge is retaining some of that revenue for the city of Atlantic City. I know much of that revenue, the state takes 100% of the luxury room and parking tax to the extent of $90+ million a year. So I think that if we can retain our equitable share of that revenue resource and have that redirected back to the city coffers, that would essentially be just about 1/3 of our city budget. So I think that that's, you know, what we can do, but accentuate the assets that we presently have.
Mr. Small, how do we make the city more attractive to tourists?
Well, first of all, it's what this administration has been doing, because we have a plan. And that plan was laid out to the good people of Atlantic City in a 2-hour and 20-minute, 88-page speech at the Atlantic City Convention Center on February 11th in our State of the City address. And it's simple. I said we need to diversify Atlantic City's offerings. We're not going to make it on casinos anymore. We have a small window to get it right because New York is on the horizon. We have to continue to diversify our offerings. We need to get more urban entertainment here in the city of Atlantic City. We don't promote our restaurants enough. Not only during Restaurant Week, it should be something that should attract the people here. We're bringing in mini golf in the inlet. That's all happening under my watch, including the state's largest arcade, Lucky Snake, at the Showboat, and ultimately the city's $100 million water park. These are things that developers wouldn't even try to build if they didn't have confidence in its leader. And a leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way, and we will continue to do that with your vote and support.
Mr. Whitehead.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What can the city do to make the resort more attractive to non-gamblers and to families?
Sure. The first thing we have to do is get a new leader in City Hall so that people outside of Atlantic City can see that we have a leader that has integrity and has some type of ethical principles that run the city. Secondly, we got to get these streets in a better condition, because if I'm a tourist and I'm driving down the street, I do not want my Mercedes-Benz or Ferrari to be going over these streets with all these potholes in them. And thirdly, nothing that the current mayor said he reviewed at that previous 2.5-hour meeting has been done. So there's always a lot of talk, and we need to be able to show action. We need to be able to show how this can be the most beautiful city in America, the safest city in America, and one of the most fabulous beachfront properties for families, not just casinos. We need to bring some new technology companies here. We need to bring some new data systems here. We need to be able to focus on a paradigm change in economy that has nothing to do with casinos. And I've already started down that road with the process of our RX5 Cyber Center and our Envision Center. And then we just got to elect me, and then we'll make it happen.
Mr. Small, since you are identified in that response, would you like to take 30 seconds?
I mean, listen, I'm going to take the high road. I'm not going to stoop to one's level. I'm going to just say, look at the person's track record. Who is he? He's a stranger in our community. Say that he loves Atlantic City but got a Washington, D.C. license plate. That says a lot. And as far as paved streets, my administration has paved the worst streets in the city of Atlantic City, including New York Avenue, what's going on now, as well as preparing both bridges in Venice Park, which was long overdue. And we're going to pave the entire Atlantic Avenue, and that's through our work with our partners. My administration is built on that foundation partnership, and it doesn't cost the Atlantic City taxpayers one dime. Now, that's leadership.
Okay, we're going to stay with Mr. Small for the first response to this next question.
Mayor Small, what should the city be doing to beautify itself? How can the Special Improvement District be encouraged to do more with planters, trees, and greenery?
Well, listen, we definitely need an overhaul. The city has its issues. I'm not going to stand up here and say that we don't. But I could tell you one thing, Atlantic City's problems are big, but the solution is small. We're working extremely hard. It's not easy. We're working with the CRDA. We have a dynamic relationship with Matt Doherty. Our Special Improvement District and our Public Works team work extremely hard together. Also, you have to take into effect there's been an extreme worker shortage throughout the country, not just immune to Atlantic City. And that caused some issues as well. We used to have a line of people wanting to work in Public Works. We couldn't find anybody this year, but that's no excuse. We know what the city looked like, but we got a plan to make it look better. And that's what this is all about. People can throw shots because they're not in a position. It's easy. But I wake up every single day making sure that my mindset is to make this place the best place that it can be. And we're going to continue to do that. Is there some issues? Absolutely it is, but we're going to be on top of it.
Mr. Whitehead, you're next.
Say the question again?
60 seconds.
What should the city be doing to beautify itself, and how can the Special Improvement District be encouraged to do more with planters, trees, and greenery?
Well, we can beautify the city a lot better than it is. And we can see that after the last 2 years, there hasn't been much beautification. One of the things that we did, we started a beautification council with a group of folks that actually sit around in the streets and don't have anything to do. And they had a sense of pride because they were engaged in beautifying the city. We also have to do something to improve the way back Maryland looks and the way Stanley Holmes Village looks, because when outside folks see that we take care of ours locally, they feel a lot more comfortable in terms of coming here. Meeting with some of the senior citizens, we have to start with the senior citizens in the beautification program too, inside their places, because at Shore High Rise right now, there's so much mold inside the facility that the senior citizens are having health problems. So beautification starts from within. We have to beautify our citizens first. We have to beautify our communities, and then we can go outside and figure out how to do all these other beautification programs. I would love to see a cherry blossom park in Atlantic City where senior citizens could come to have a cup of tea. So there's some ways that we can work together with the community to beautify Atlantic City.
Mr. Forkin.
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to work on the trash issue. The city, you don't have to be special to see the amount of trash and filth in the streets. It's a shame. I think we need to enforce the ordinances, the littering ordinances. I think people need to be getting tickets. I think that some of the shrubbery and some of the vacant lots needs to be taken down and people fined. But, we have a director of planning and development that doesn't even, and licenses and inspection that doesn't even live not only in Atlantic County, but they don't even live in Atlantic City. I mean, I moved here as a member of the Wayland administration, and, it was required that we live here. So we have directors that live out of town that don't even live in the city, and that's required by city ordinance. But first and foremost, we have to clean the city, and we have to have people to do their jobs. We have to have them accountable and hold that accountability with not just Sid, but also with the city employees as well, and pay them properly.
Okay, Mr. Forkin will get the first crack at this next question.
Okay. That's what. A state assembly candidate at a recent debate here took a shot at the city over policing, saying that the department has been, quote unquote, defunded and is currently 60 officers down. First, what is your response to that kind of criticism? And can the city afford an increase in the force, considering the high expense of public safety, salaries and benefits, budget restraints from the state, and the city's current debt service?
Well, part of the problematic issue, and to answer that question specifically, I served in the Wayland administration as a police legal advisor. I redrafted the rules and regulations that guide the department pursuant to the Attorney General guidelines. And I can tell you, as a matter of fact, it's not 60 officers. It's more like 260. We used to have 3 platoons. The 3 platoons are now down to 2 platoons. 3 platoons working 8 hours each. Now we have 2 platoons working 12. We have a serious manpower shortage and womanpower shortage on that police department. It has put our public at risk. Okay, this is one of the reasons that some of the criminals feel emboldened And it has to stop. Where I would get the money, I noted earlier, the state takes 100% of our luxury room and parking tax. We're hemorrhaging money at the hands of the state. And what they're doing is unconstitutional. That's why we need Vince Palestina, Don Guardian, and Claire Swift as our new state legislators, and Jack Ciattarelli as our next governor of the state of New Jersey to put a stop to this nonsense. Thank you.
Mr. Small, your response.
First of all, those numbers are not true. We're not dealing with pie in the sky numbers of what it used to be. We're going to deal with the numbers that are at hand now. When people were saying defund the police and the whole Black Lives Matter movement and the civil unrest, it was Mayor Small's leadership that stood there with the police and said, we don't need to defund the police, we need to support our police. And I'm the mayor that has supported this police department more than any mayor in recent memories, be it hiring, promotion, working with CRDA, getting more officers, getting more equipment, getting more Class 2s. We're fiscally sound, ladies and gentlemen. That narrative that the city spins out of control is absolutely not true. As I like to say, men, women, and political opportunists lie, but the numbers and facts don't. We're working with the state. We know that we need more officers. Right now, we're down 15, and as of this evening, December 1st, we'll be down 18 because we had a lieutenant announce that he was retiring. So we need our officers to be paid more, and we need more officers there, and we're having those discussions with the government through the state as well.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
We absolutely need more police officers, and I am one of those kind of guys that believe in the blue, but we can't increase our police force by increasing the taxes on Atlantic City homeowners and Atlantic City residents. When we are giving away Atlantic City property to organizations like ShopRite, which is, if the citizens want it, let's bring it. But when we give them property for free, they don't have to pay no taxes, but then they're going to need to use our police department, they're going to need to use our fire department, they're going to need to use our sewage department. You're not going to be able to increase our police force on the backs of Atlantic City taxpayers. You have to be able to have private enterprise start to pick up some of the pieces and be responsible for covering some of the security of the community. So I think that we should increase our police force twofold, threefold, but I think we need to do it by bringing more private sector investment into the town and letting the private sector pay their fair share of taxes. Right now, you got a whole bunch of private sector people in town that's not paying any taxes, and this current government just keeps giving it away for free.
We're going to stick with the issue of public safety.
Yes.
I'm going to give the mayor 30 seconds to respond.
Yes, thank you, John. Once again, this guy is ill-prepared. He asked on 3 occasions to repeat the question, and then he's giving out wrong information. That is not city land. That is CRDA's land, and everyone in this room know that as a state agency, they're tax exempt. And he keeps talking about bad taxes. I took a budget from $262.5 million with our brilliant CFO, Toro Aberdeen, down to under $200 million this year. Those are the facts. And if you keep saying that we're giving land away, the residents of Atlantic City is getting something that we haven't had in a long time, and that's a supermarket. 2 straight tax decreases. Don't take his word for it. Moody's and Standard & Poor's upgraded us twice and increased our bond rating. That's fiscal responsibility.
Mr. Forkin, would you like to take 30 seconds, and then we'll come back to Mr. Whitehead?
Well, I don't know if fiscal responsibility is giving yourself a raise for $41,000 in the middle of a pandemic, or perhaps giving your staff close to $500,000 in raises. But you know, we have to do more. We have to do better. Fiscal responsibility. We're in a $550 million plus debt that the state of New Jersey has saddled the city of Atlantic City with, and we're talking about fiscal responsibility. I don't think it's fiscally responsible at all. Thank you.
Please, briefly.
That is fiscal responsibility, because if you understood how the budget works, we had a debt payment.
I understand, Marty.
Please let him answer.
We had a debt payment of $38 million. According to the press of Atlantic City, which we provided the numbers, 2027, it's a cliff. The budget will substantially decrease. We have a plan. If we do nothing, our debt expires in 2043. So it's cute to sit up here and talk about taxes and debt and high this and high that, but the numbers don't bear anything that you're talking about. So if we're going to talk to the people about the real issues, let's talk about it.
Thank you.
And not be a candidate. Get some facts behind you.
All right. Public safety is an issue that I know a lot of people are concerned about. Panelists, let's stick with this and address this to Mr. Whitehead, please.
The crime rate in Atlantic City actually dropped during the pandemic, but there has been a recent string of high-profile incidences of violent crimes. Do you have any plan to address these high-profile violent crimes as we get past the pandemic?
Well, first of all, I want to say something that was a little off-key. Yes, we do have an answer for crime in Atlantic City, and that's jobs. These young men and young ladies need jobs. We need to create more jobs. And then we also need to the police are doing a great job of community service right now, of working with the community. But again, it's not just crime that's taking Atlantic City down. It's a lack of jobs and a lack of leadership. When they just addressed the previous question about how do you deal with the taxes? Well, when I'm your mayor, I'll fight for taxes for the police department. I'm not going to just say this is tax-free land to CRETA. I'm going to say, no, I'm the mayor, and you got to pay some money to help us cover the cost of fighting crime. So I think leadership has to go beyond just the quick fix and the special balls that they do to have a good time in the community. No, we need to lead by example. We need to create jobs. And we need to start fighting for the citizens of Atlantic City who are the taxpayers covering all these expenses.
Mr. Forkin.
Could you repeat the question, please, Buzz?
Actually, during the pandemic, crime went down, but we have a recent string of high-profile violent crimes. What is your plan to address these high-profile violent crimes?
Well, I think that the reason that the numbers went down during the pandemic was people were in lockdown. You know, people were in lockdown, their businesses were closed, you know, nobody was out and about. And my plan has been, and it's articulated on our website at forkin4ac.com, that we need more boots on the ground. I think I noted earlier that we're down over 200 officers from when Mayor Whalen and I served as his police legal advisor. We're down over 200 officers. We're down from 3 platoons to 2 platoons. That places public safety at risk, okay? We need more. You can have as many cameras as you want around the town, but unless we have boots on the ground to get there and disperse, you know, we have nights in Atlantic City where there's only, you know, 10 officers on the street, and I know that as a fact. But what we need to also do is consider, you know, educating and providing opportunities for our children and providing opportunities for our residents, all of our residents, not just a select few, but we need those programs in place. When they cut the middle school sports programs, I spoke out against that because kids would gravitate to gangs and bad behavior. That's happened, and that's on the state's hands.
Mr. Small, you have 60 seconds.
This guy to my immediate left, once again, it shows that he's ill-prepared and out of his
Not
league.
ill-prepared, Marty.
He says, I wasn't talking
You're
about
misleading.
your time. I said to my immediate left.
All right, thank you.
Can you apologize?
I'm sorry, Marty.
Thank you. Can I get my time back?
Go ahead.
All right. Once again, he said that he would get you taxes to get more police. You don't get taxes to get more police. It's how you budget. And we know that public safety is the biggest issue in Atlantic City, but it's working with partners like CRDA who paid millions of dollars to public safety, particularly the police force, to hire class twos, to get our equipment, to provide anything that the city needs. I'm tired of this guy keep talking about Back Maryland and Stanley Holmes Village when he really needs a GPS to find those places. They don't know him. What we would do is what we've done. We've been proactive. And I said when I announced in November that our One Neighborhood Evolution program is not going to solve all crime. You never solve all crime. But it's a proactive effort that no administration in the city has ever put forth. Leadership is working with your state assemblyman to get $1.5 million in the fiscal year 2022, so we have full funding to expand that program as well. In the recent gun violence, as I stated, you're not going to stop the crime, but we're not going to get it right all the time, but we're going to keep giving our people the tools to succeed to lower the crime. And we're working with the police chief to do that.
On this next question, we'll start with Mr. Small.
Yes.
While you initially opposed the state takeover, under Governor Murphy's administration, you've been working more in partnership. The takeover was recently extended another 4 years by state law by Assemblyman Vince Mazzio. The question is, are you satisfied with the results of the state takeover, and is another 4 years justified in your opinion?
Listen, I'm going to say this again, like I said back in 2016. Welcome to the party. A lot of people all of a sudden want to fight the state takeover when I was the one up in Trenton by myself fighting the most out of anyone in Atlantic City. That's a fact. Going against Governor Christie and Senate President Steve Sweeney for the good people of Atlantic City. Now that it happened, you have to turn the page and be a professional. The war's over. They won. And we have to work with them, and the elements of the state takeover has worked. Look at the settlement that they did with Bogota and other things. We're working in true partnership. We don't get along all the time, but we're family do. But I tell you one thing, I'm not opposed to 4 more years of the state takeover because we need the state's money at this time. And if they're going to be here, they got to invest here, and they got to embrace everything that we need here in the great city of Atlantic City. It's easy to play Monday morning quarterback and say what you would have done, but like I said, let the record reflect. 2016, I was standing on the mountaintop by myself while everyone was here in Atlantic City just sitting and letting it happen.
So with Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Forkin, would you see yourself as a partner with the state, or would you oppose the continued oversight? And we'll start with Mr. Whitehead.
Well, first of all, you do need taxes to pay for the police increase. Okay, you do need taxes, because he's not going to give up his $140,000 to pay for it, right? Secondly, we can raise taxes on businesses. They got businesses here that are not paying no taxes. In terms of what the question you just asked me, what was it again?
Would you see yourself as a partner with the state, or would
Absolutely,
you
I'd be a partner with the state. I've already been talking to the governor and lieutenant governor about how we can collaborate with the state to bring in new jobs here in private sector investment. And absolutely, I would partner with the state, but I would say we need to have the power of the people back in Atlantic City. I don't think it's fair, I don't think it's constitutional for the state to be running Atlantic City, and the current administration is not trying to fight that issue. So at the end of the day, yes, we can partner strategically, but we have to have the power of Atlantic City back with the people. And the way we do that is have leadership that can bring in private investment. When we bring in Dell and we bring in Intel and we bring in some of these type of high technology companies, then the state would say, look what this new mayor did. He brought in $500 million worth of investment. It's time to turn the power of the city back over to Atlantic City.
Mr. Forkin.
I absolutely opposed the state takeover. I said it was unconstitutional when they proposed it. I went to city council, I went to the former mayor, and I believe when Councilman Small was on city council, I begged this city council to sue the state in federal court on civil rights grounds, because it's unconstitutional what's going on here. The biblical cuts that they've had in our law enforcement, we have to borrow fire trucks from Ventnor and Margate. This Atlantic City is the economic engine that drives this region. We hemorrhage money annually. There is no reason, okay, over $550 million in debt. Let that sink in. They called the city of Atlantic City fiscally irresponsible at $100 million. Well, what's that make the state? The state can't even run itself. We need a new governor with Jack Chittarelli. We need a new state assembly people with Claire Swift and Don Guardian. We need fundamental legislative changes to have economic equality here in Atlantic City for our residents. Thank you.
Quick, please.
Yes, I just want to rebut on private investment. I just think it's disingenuous to sit here to lie to the people of Atlantic City. This guy has been involved in the mayor's race since 2013, 13 as a campaign manager, 17, 20, and 21 as a candidate, and always said 5,000 cybersecurity jobs and hasn't produced one. Every conversation he says he's going to have $1 billion coming here, $1 billion coming here. We tried to help this guy because it would have benefited the good people of Atlantic City to produce 300 jobs. When he sent his proposal to Creed, he asked for $3.5 million in salary in year 1. They asked him to justify it for year 2 and year 3. He couldn't do it. And then he said that I just strung him along so he wouldn't run in the primary. This is a guy that perennially gets 250 votes. You do the math.
Thank you, sir. Since you were criticized by name, please.
Sure.
Then we'd like to move on.
The mayor lied. The mayor told me he was going to support our project. And then after April 5th, he stopped supporting me. And when I called him up, I said, Mayor, what happened? Why are you not supporting our project no more? And he said, well, you know, I don't have no power. I can't do anything. Well, so that's a lie right there, okay? In terms of the focus that we have with the Cyber Center, believe me, we bring in that type of industry here. We're going to create 300 plus more jobs. I mean, this is what the industry we're in now is data. Michael Dale told me, Michael Dale said, If we do what we're doing at the Cyber Garage, we'll generate $1 billion in Atlantic City over the next 2 years,
Thank
which
you,
has
sir.
nothing to do with casinos.
Thank
So
you.
that's
This-
the focus.
This next question, we're sticking with a similar topic, and this will start with Mr. Whitehead, please.
Do you support proposed changes in pilot legislation that would remove sports and online gaming revenues from the calculation to determine how much casinos pay in lieu of taxes? And why or why not?
Well, I think we should expand on online betting. I think it's a growing industry. I think the people down in the Virgin Islands would like to team with us, and I think it's a good thing for the city to have online betting as well as the casinos. But we have to supplement that with some non-casino activity, which is what's killing the city, because the casinos are not a panacea anymore. We need some other industry here. And the new industry we need to bring in is the data industry. And these guys here don't understand that because all they understand is the party industry, the Marty party industry. So all I want to do is really focus on how we can be proactive, work together with the state, work together with the federal government, bring some of the federal agencies up here, because when you bring the federal agencies to Atlantic City, you also bring federal security here. And that can supplement our police officers as well. So yes, I think the sports betting is fine. But I think that we need to focus on something other than gaming in Atlantic City.
Mr. Forkin, 60 seconds.
Well, you know, I'm on record that back when I served as one of Jim Whalen's attorneys, and there was a prohibition on sports betting in the state of New Jersey, I said it was unconstitutional then. You can't prohibit New Jersey from having sports betting. Jim didn't want to rock the boat. He's my boss. I had to listen to him. But I'll say this. For that to be removed from the pilot program, are you kidding me? The pilot program is in and of itself unconstitutional. Denny Levinson proved that when he sued the state, okay, in federal court. He sued Denny Levinson, who was courageous enough to go against Governor Christie, and the state settled that lawsuit. The city neglected to join in the lawsuit and didn't get any of the settlement money, but Denny Levinson had the courage to do that. I absolutely oppose, and I know that our Assembly candidates and our Senate candidate, Vince Palestina, also oppose removing sports betting from that pilot legislation, because if it goes below a certain number, they're going to pay less taxes. If it goes above, they're going to pay more of a fair share. But the pilot program is in and of itself unconstitutional.
And Mr. Small.
I'm absolutely against taking that out of the legislation because, as you saw in September, the state of New Jersey had $1 billion in sports gaming. We are the #1 market in the country. We did that in a short time. The citizens need a pilot. The citizens need a relief. And it's creativity that my administration has to come up with that. We offered, and we're waiting for the state's approval, a $500 payment to every taxpayer that is current on their taxes. We don't get any money off of sports gaming. I was there on the Senate floor, once again, fighting by myself. Check the articles. The law said every municipality or township shall get 1.25% in sports betting revenue. It was written out for Atlantic City. They gave the money to CRETA to market the city. We need to market the city, but the residents of Atlantic City, the taxpayers that I stand for each and every day, need that relief as well, and we're going to continue to fight.
Great. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Forkin on this one.
Flooding is an issue in all shore communities, and planners are predicting that it will only get worse with the sea level rising. Do you believe the city is taking flood control into consideration when it pushes for development of large open tracts like Bader Field and other areas in the inlet?
Well, I think that that's an excellent question. I think that the city presently has to figure out how to turn the pumps on. I know we have multi-million-dollar pumps that were installed around the corner from my home on Rhode Island Avenue, and the pumps are never turned on. Those are relatively new pumps. I think Bader Field is elevated enough. I mean, my proposal for Bader Field is to propose an airport community there, just like they have out west in parts of Florida, where you actually fly planes in and you can, port your plane right at your home. But looking at the flooding problems, yeah, we have problems. But not all those other shore communities generate that much money for the state of New Jersey. Now, we have these pumps. The pumps don't get turned on. We have half measures availed with these bulkheading, the piecemeal bulkheading. We need new bulkheading on West End Drive. I would like to see that done, and that can be done through just effective federal grant writing through FEMA or other federal agencies that can help mitigate that flooding issue. Thank you.
Mr. Small.
Well, I agree with him on the faulty pump uptown in the inlet. That has been an Achilles heel, but we now have the situation in play. The equipment is now working. That was an utter disaster, and we got to the bottom of it. But my opponent just threw me a softball. Number one, he said Beta Field can be developed as it is. No, it can't. You need to raise Beta Field 6 to 8 feet. And what my administration has done, we put out a citywide dredging permit so we can take the dredge spoils from other sites that possibly partner with Orsted or other independent companies to raise Beta Field and make it more attractive and developable. He said about grants. My administration has gotten more money, free money for the citizens of Atlantic City than any other administration. Let's start with the state believing in us with a $20 million leftover Sandy funds that is fixing bulkheads from Lower Chelsea to the expressway. And let's talk about the federal government when we got a $5.2 million grant for the Atlantis Avenue pump station that's going to alleviate the flood uptown in and around Texas Avenue. So that's leadership. That's not what we want to do. That's what we've done.
Mr. Whitehead.
I didn't mention him by name. I said he threw me a softball.
Go ahead, 20 seconds, please.
Okay. Well, I don't know if those are the same engineers that are telling Mayor Small about Atlantic Avenue that they're telling him about Bader Field, but, you just have one engineer's report. The engineer's report for Atlantic Avenue is going to make it safer. The other roads are going to be unsafe. But my point is that Bader Field, my opinion, okay, engineers that I've spoken with, prime for development without adding 8 feet to the height. Thank you.
Let's bring Mr. Whitehead in on this issue of flooding and flood control.
Sure. So the sewage in Atlantic City is plugged up with elected officials who have been in office for 16, 18, 20 years. That's what's plugging up the sewage, right? Because if you've been in office for 20 years and we have not corrected the flood problems yet, that's the problem. The thing that's clogging up the sewage is the 18, 20-year elected officials. These guys are making a living off of being elected officials without doing nothing. You can go out there, if you've been such a great official, not this individual, but all of them, if you've been such a great official over the last 20 years, go down those streets and feel those bumps under your cars and then try to drive down there when there's some flooding, okay? The flood is because of these officials. We need term limits on the mayor's office. We need term limits on the city councils. We need to have these guys held accountable because at election time, they come up here and they say all these flowery things. They try to sound smart. But at the end of the day, when you elect somebody, they're in office. You cannot put these same people back in office. It's time for a change. It's time for a new day.
For those of you keeping score, we're a little past the halfway mark, and we have a few more issues to get to. This one will start with Mr. Small.
Do you think the supermarket, as planned, is the best option for solving the city's food scarcity issues? And are there other things that should be done?
Absolutely, it's the best. I was involved in the process as a city council president. I went to every ward in the city, met with every community group, including the clergy and all the stakeholders. But interestingly enough, some people want to play politics and go against the supermarket, and they're uneducated on the facts. Once again, that CRDA's land is tax exempt. And I applaud the leadership of CRDA that we didn't make the same mistake as the 99-year lease where you see where the liquor store and Save-A-Lot is. It's a train wreck. What happened? We didn't subscribe to the definition of insanity and do the same thing over and over again. So the residents of Atlantic City will have a free supermarket and a big-name supermarket, which we want. And I was accused of playing politics. One of my opponents said, well, why do we have to make it a big thing and have a groundbreaking? But this is the integrity that you talk about. I called Governor Murphy today. I said, don't do the groundbreaking until after the election, and it's scheduled for November 18th. That's the leadership. I don't need the supermarket photo op to win the people of Atlantic City. We've been winning them over day by day, and we're going to continue to win them over.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
Sure. When you're the mayor of the people, you fight for the people, not for Creta. You don't fight for ShopRite, you fight for the people. Now, when we started our community benefits agreement discussion with CRETA, we started a discussion because we wanted 50% of the jobs to go to the residents, 30% of the contracts to go to local contractors, and we had some other benefits in there that we requested. When this current mayor had his discussion with CRETA and everybody else, they didn't fight for nothing for the people. They didn't fight for jobs for the people. They didn't fight for taxes for the taxpayers. They didn't fight for contractors that are MBE and women-owned businesses to have any participation in the development of an $18.7 million facility. We should just take the money and go fix the street. Let's get rid of the stuff that's plugging up the sewage, these elected officials, and elect Jimmy Whitehead as mayor, and I'll show you how I'll defend the people. I'll fight for the people. It's not fighting for the people when you just roll over to CRETA and say, yes, you don't have to pay us no taxes. We don't have to cover our school costs. We don't have to cover our police. Just do what you want to do to us, because I'm not here for the people. I'm here for myself. Thank you.
Mr. Forkin.
Well,
I'll come back to you.
okay.
Is Mayor Small going to respond to?
No, let's let you go and we'll
Okay.
come back.
Well, in terms of the market, I think that everybody's agreed for years. I think that this is like the fourth or fifth proposed supermarket that we've had here in Atlantic City. I support the concept. I think it's important, but, don't discount the wonderful variety of ethnic markets that we have here in Atlantic City, providing a variety of food from different ethnicities throughout the city. It's wonderful. My girlfriend and I shop regularly. We get different foods from different stores. I think that the idea of ShopRite is great. I disagree with the concept of giving them, whatever it is, $18 million to build here, tax-free land. I disagree with a lot of the things. I thought, and I've said this before, that at one point in time, CRETA owned over 600 lots. You want to know where the tax problems come from in Atlantic City? Over 600 lots that they own tax-free? Talk to me about that. Tax-free lots, over 600 lots, and they're giving them away, okay, tax-free. So are they putting those back on the tax books? Not in this case. And that's the part of it that I do disagree with. And that $18 million can be spent amongst the residents in Atlantic City or fixing the streets. Thank you.
Mr. Small was criticized.
Well, yes. Well, all due respect, I didn't know that we were attending a comedy show tonight. They're not laughing with you. They're laughing at you because you're off base. You're just saying anything to try to be elected. Let me just break it down. I've spoken to ShopRite's own. I was on the phone with them this afternoon. In my administration, with our EEO officer and our affirmative action officer, Ms. Monatali, we're going to fight for the people. You don't speak for anyone. You don't even speak for yourself. As far as apprenticeships, my administration has shown that. We're working with them to make sure that Atlantic City residents get the union jobs. We put 9 people in the local laborers union doing 3-week apprenticeship program, and we're going to work on the same program with ShopRite as well. That's facts. That's not political rhetoric.
Okay, this next question will start with Mr. Whitehead.
City Council voted to end the needle exchange program in the city. Two-part question. Do you agree with that decision? And how should we be addressing drug addiction, which is not going to go away?
I don't think we could just shut it down cold turkey. I think we have to have a opportunity to bring it down and at the same time provide necessary treatment for people who are addicted and the homeless that are out there and people who need help. I don't think we could just shut it down and walk away. We have to come up with some better solutions, because once you shut it down, then you have another problem. People running around without any assistance, and the homeless right now is a big problem that we need to address, and some of them are addicted. So I'm not in for shutting it down right now.
Mr. Forkin.
I absolutely agree with City Council. I think that the way that the needle exchange has been run, if it's really an exchange, then there wouldn't be needles littering the street. We need more counseling at those exchange locations. But why does Atlantic City have to be force-fed a needle exchange program that the state pushed down our throat? It's inequitable. But with that said, I want to note that my sister Kelly, died of addiction. Okay, and basically what you're doing is you're giving them a means to kill themselves, giving free needles. Okay, they're not shooting vitamin C. Okay, they're shooting heroin. And the fact that, that enables drug dealers, and it's a domino effect. Drug dealers come to town, they sell drugs, they know that there's a needle exchange here, people know that they can come to town for inexpensive drugs. Oh, and by the way, we have free needles over here. So, this has to stop. I do agree with City Council in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Small.
And yes, I wholeheartedly support our city council, and I would like to thank my colleague, City Council President George Tibbet, who's in the audience, for his leadership on that. Why does it have to be in Atlantic City? We're all sensitive. We all have people in our family that struggle with addiction. We're not moving it away, but a lot of those people don't even live in Atlantic City. And then we're here to bear the brunt. Why isn't it in neighboring towns? Nobody wants it. It's, not in my town. However, pending legislation is coming that we're going to fight like hell against, that says it gives the state the authority to put it anywhere. Let's see how many towns get in the uproar over that. But the biggest problem in Atlantic City is the homeless situation, and quite frankly, we're struggling to get our arms around it because it's something that didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to go away overnight. CRDA gave Volunteers of America money. The city of Atlantic City, speaking of leadership and money, we got a $750,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice and Jewish Family Service to fight against homelessness. It's Greyhound therapy, ladies and gentlemen. People sitting there, less fortunate, from municipalities near and far, and say, go to Atlantic City and figure it out, and we can't continue to live like that.
We'll start next with Mr. Forkin.
Yes. Atlantic City always underperforms on child and maternal health measures. Is the city doing enough to help these vulnerable populations, and what more can be done?
Well, I think the prenatal care at Atlantic Care has recently been upgraded from what I understand. I understand Dory Herndon they're building a new wing, a new building here in Atlantic City to address part of that. I think a big part of it's education. A lot of that starts in our schools. As an educator, I teach at ACIT. I think that, not only is this a lesson in civics and to resolve potential issues and problematic issues, but I think that educating our young people as to child care and the impacts of drugs and other types of addictions, alcohol and so forth, that needs to be addressed as well. When you're looking at the prenatal and the infant mortality rate in an area such as Atlantic City, I think education is key, but also you have to couple that with your medical as well. And I think Atlantic Care does a fantastic job.
Okay. Mr. Small.
I'm glad a lot of people came to the party all of a sudden. This is something that I put out in my 2020 State of the City address, that we need to deal with the issue of kids not being born in the great city of Atlantic City. We did the visit with Atlantic Care, and they explained because of the proximity of the current hospital, the new center was not designed for a birthing center, but to enhance the services to decrease the infant mortality. And that's what they're doing. They're going to go with the parents pre through post. But we working with Dr. Regis of Reliance, who is trying to build a birthing center on his current property. And we're talking to CRDA about investing in it because my children can't say my slogan. And my slogan is, I'm Atlantic City born, I'm Atlantic City bred, and when I die, I'm going to be Atlantic City dead. And the children of Atlantic City don't have an opportunity to say that as we speak. But we're going to work as hard as we can to get it done. We're not making no promises, but we're making progress.
And Mr. Whitehead.
Yeah, I understand they have some real focus right now on prenatal care and making it better. But you got to understand, we got here because of the non-leadership that exists in City Hall right now. The non-leadership that has let things fall through the cracks is why we don't have the kind of prenatal care we need. But I believe that it is getting better. Atlantic Care is focused on it. Dr. Regis, who is a good friend of mine, is very focused on it. But it also comes down to families. We need fathers in these families. We need families to be together. We need a role model for these families to look up to and say, you know what? I have a mayor who believes in family. I have a mayor who believes in fatherhood and good values. I have a mayor who projects an image of how can we lift our communities up and lift our families up, and not just a mayor who is not around on 9/11 when we out here celebrating, the memorial of people that lost their lives. We need the right kind of leadership to be able to project the image that will help us start to provide better prenatal care with families.
Okay.
Can I-
We have time for just two more questions.
Okay, but I was addressed. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, We're here to talk about the issues, and this guy is constantly taking shot. Nobody knows him. Nobody knows who he's related to. Nobody knows who sent him to Atlantic City. Just a couple months ago, I was the greatest mayor ever when he thought that CRDA was going to believe in his Ponzi scheme. Nobody's buying it. And you want to talk about role model? I'm a great role model for the children of Atlantic City. I'm known as Mr. Marty more than I am as Mayor Small, and that's because of my years of work
Thank you,
in the
sir.
community with these children. I have a story that the children can look up to, and not somebody that just comes
Small.
around during election time like him.
We have time for just two more questions before closing statement, so if we could go through these, this one starts with Mr. Small.
Well, he said like him, do I have to address that? Because he said like him.
No, we're not going back and forth.
Let's
Thank
please
you.
get through these.
Don't waste our
quickly,
time.
all right?
Okay. Mayor Small, City Council has restricted cannabis retail sales to certain areas of the city, and they have prohibited it on the boardwalk. Do you agree with City Council's decision, and what would you do differently?
I wouldn't do anything differently. We worked on it together, and that's when you have a partnership in government and working with the council president and members of council for a common cause, and that's the good people of Atlantic City. I was against marijuana. I never smoked marijuana, never smoked anything, but I couldn't let my personal feelings get in the way for the greater good of the people of Atlantic City. So we support it, and we use it as a new industry. And it was Mayor Small who founded 2% on the medical that the city now benefits from, that we're going to benefit on there. And it's me putting someone, a young leader like Keshawn Cash McKinley, who has taken the time to educate himself and be the leader for the city's effort. That's confidence in young people, and that's what my administration is about. And we're working with Stockton, this very university, to provide scholarships to continue to educate people. So to answer your question, I'm wholeheartedly against it on the boardwalk, but we accept it as a new industry, and we're going to get all that we can out of it when it gets underway. Thank you.
Mr. Whitehead.
Well, first of all, who brought me here to Atlantic City? God brought me here. That's why I'm here, okay? Because we needed a godly man in Atlantic City to lead the way. In terms of this marijuana thing, the last time I ran for office, I said to myself, I had it out there, I said, listen, if you're going to do a marijuana thing here in Atlantic City, do it like a pilot program like they did on the taxpayers. For 4 years, let's take all the revenue from the marijuana sales here in Atlantic City back to Atlantic City Hall and allow the homeowners to have 4 years of no taxes, okay? Let's have a pilot program for the people. Okay, 2% of what is sold, that's not going to make a difference because they're going to raise your taxes and take that back from you also. So I think if we're going to have a pilot program with marijuana, it has to be a real program that makes a real impact in terms of our children's education, give some of that money to the police officers so we can hire more. And let's be real, this is not going to be a panacea for Atlantic City marijuana. I mean, it's just like the casinos. We need real industry here, like technology.
And Mr. Forkin on cannabis.
Well, I respectfully disagree with City Council on prohibiting marijuana sales on the boardwalk. I think, City Council and Planning and Development, they watched this $1 million business open up down there called The Botanist. If they were familiar with it, I'm sure this place opened up. Medical marijuana, and then they wanted to sell recreational marijuana. They invested a substantial amount of money in Atlantic City, and I don't see a problem with it. I don't smoke marijuana anymore, but when I was a kid, growing up in the 80s, of course, it does happen. I'm not going to lie, but to have revenue generated from it and tax revenue generated from it and allow sales up on the boardwalk, people forget, like a lot of the marijuana sales is done vis-a-vis edibles, like gummy bears or things like that. And, we have to embrace what we are. I authored the original open container bill for the boardwalk. We have to embrace what we are. We have to generate revenue. That revenue needs to stay in Atlantic City. So I respectfully disagree with City Council on that one. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one last question before closing statements. This one is going to start with Mr. Whitehead.
Where would you find the tens of millions of dollars that are necessary to fix the structural deterioration that's occurring on the boardwalk? And would you take other steps, such as restricting vehicles, including trams?
Well, I would start with some of the infrastructure discussions going on in Washington, D.C. right now with the White House and the federal government. let's go down there and have somebody like myself who knows how to get around, go down there and get some of that money. I think we do need to change some of the transportation going on the boardwalk, because a lot of the merchants up there say that those trans are tearing up the boardwalk, so we need to limit that. But I would definitely go after some federal dollars and not try to just tax the people here to make some of those corrections. That's how I look at that.
Thank you. Mr. Forkin.
Where would the money come from? You know, I run down the boardwalk every day. I bike down the boardwalk. There's some really bad patches up there biking. I bike before, you know, I do the AC Ironman every year. And let me tell you something, that boardwalk's in bad shape. So where do you get the money from? The state of New Jersey, that's in the tourism zone. You know, the state has to pay their fair share. You know, if they're going to be taking all of our revenue resources, you know, from the sports betting, from the luxury room and parking tax. You know, the original purpose of the luxury tax, you know what that was for? Was to rebuild the boardwalk after one of the storms back in, I believe it was the 1920s. So that was the original purpose of the luxury tax. There is already enough revenue. Atlantic City, if we went to bankruptcy court, and I talked to Councilman Tibbetts about this earlier today, and I know that Councilman Tibbetts wanted to see us go into bankruptcy, and if a federal court judge looked at the debt-to-income ratio for Atlantic City, the state would be ashamed of themselves, because any half-wit can look at the economics in this and say, it's not equitable, it's not fair, because we make the money and it needs to stay here. And that's what I would advocate for. Thank you.
And Mr. Small.
Once again, neither has a plan. We have a plan A, B, and C. We talked to them. We talked about this in my State of the City address. We're talking to Senator Booker, who is arranging a visit from Mayor Pete, the former presidential candidate who is now the transportation secretary, for a visit here in Atlantic City. He was big on infrastructure projects. What better project to rebuild than the Atlantic City Boardwalk? The infrastructure bill, we're hoping that Atlantic City gets north of $100 million, not just for the boardwalk, because it's not just about the boardwalk, it's about the infrastructure in our entire city that needs an upgrade. We need to rebuild the boardwalk from Ocean to the connector. Now, the boardwalk goes from Gardner's Basin all the way down to the end. And our final plan, if we don't get Booker and Buttigieg or the infrastructure money, we're going to approach CRDA in every casino, and every casino can build the boardwalk block by block. That's what you get under the small administration.
Thank you. Before we go to closing statements, I want to thank the candidates for what I think was a very thoughtful debate, and I think your participation here is a sign of respect for the voters. This debate, video of this debate will be archived on the Hughes Center website, www.stockton.edu/Hughes Center, and you can read about all the civic engagement activities of our center. So as the random draw chose, we will have 1 minute closing remarks from Mr. Forkin, from Mr. Small, and then Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Forkin.
Thank you once again for allowing us to speak on the issues this evening. You don't have to be an economist to understand the problematic issues that face Atlantic City. And, you know, there's part of me that feels badly for Mayor Small in the sense that he's handcuffed, in the sense that the state, everything has to run through the state. I've opposed a state takeover. What they're doing here is unconstitutional. But what are we going to do? Are we going to continue to kick this can down the street? Are we going to keep electing the same people to the same positions and get the same failure that we've had in Atlantic City for the past however many years, 30 years? So, you know, we need a new governor. We need Jack Ciattarelli as governor. We need a state senator like Vince Palestina and Don Guardian and Claire Swift for Senate. Okay, we need new people. We need fresh eyes. And I respectfully submit to you that as a mayor, you know, Whalen was a dear friend of mine, and I worked for his administration. I think I have the experience and the knowledge to make that difference. Thank you.
Mr. Small.
Well, Atlantic City, the choice is crystal clear. You know me. You know my successes. You know my failures. You've seen me through trials and tribulations. You know how I respond in a crisis. We have a plan, ladies and gentlemen. And no mayor has been through what I've been through. And let me just talk to you about that briefly. Coming in under change of government, dealing with the pandemic, and we shine. Those are tough times. And I've always said that tough times don't last, tough people do. I would never use a word like deserve, but I believe that I earned your vote to have the opportunity as every mayor has had. Listen, Atlantic City's problems are big, but the solution is small. We want you to know and understand that a small plan does make a big difference. And my administration is what all your hopes and dreams are made of, and we got a lot of work to do. I'm not perfect. My effort is perfect. I love this city. So I'm going to ask you on Tuesday, November 2nd, and starting this Saturday, to dream big, vote small. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Whitehead.
Think big, do not vote small, okay? Let me tell you this. Everybody knows why we're here. This city needs a new mayor, okay? I have police officers who are so scared of this mayor, they say, Jimmy, I don't want to take a picture next to you because the mayor's going to get me. I have citizens out there who say they get threats and they get calls if they don't do what this mayor wants them to do. I have voters out there who come to me and say, Mr. Whitehead, the mayor wants to pay me for my vote. What should I do? I say, take his money and vote for me. This is not how you run a government, okay? The way you want this government to be is the way Jimmy Whitehead would run it. You gave this gentleman an opportunity for 2 years. And for 2 years, you see what has happened. We've had shootings on Atlantic Avenue. We've had shootings in back Maryland. We've had shootings all over Atlantic City over the last 2 years. It has not been a great year. It's been a terrible year, and it's time for a new day. I'm telling you, give me the opportunity to show you how this city can shine. Give me the opportunity to show you how your children can achieve. Give me the opportunity to give you a new day, Atlantic City. God bless you.
If you'd like, you may applaud all three candidates. And thank you, and from Stockton University, good night.